Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking. I'm here to talk to you about wrestling. So I know that yes, this channel's been around forever, and this has mostly been about gaming and all kinds of stuff like that. In the recent whatevers, I've kind of just decided this video channel is going to be whatever the heck I want to talk about and whatever I'm going to put up there. So I know a lot of you probably won't be interested in this, and that's fine. I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about what's going on. I am going to try to do way more gaming content, and that's board games and role-playing games. It's just one of those things where I need to like kind of find topics that are prying at my brain, if you will, for lack of a better term. Things that I want to talk about, things that I think are, prescient in the board game world or the role playing game world, and I feel like I have an opinion that's worthy of sharing. So all that being said, wrestling. I've watched wrestling since I was a little kid. Both my stepfather and my father were big fans of it. My stepfather probably more than my dad, but I would watch it with them all the time. I still remember the first time my father explained to me that it wasn't real. And I always kind of despise that whole wrestling is fake bullshit. I mean, there's a lot of it is, as somebody, a wrestler once said, everything about it is real except for the end. The who's going to win or lose the match is determined before, but all the action that you see in front of it's an acting performance of physicality, and it is just a really good TV show. It's a fun thing to watch. So this video is like how I met Hulk Hogan, and it isn't like I'm friends with the guy. I had a 15 to 20 minute conversation with him at one time in my life, in my 20s, way back in the day. I worked for, and I'm just gonna. I mean, I'm not proud of the fact that I worked for this company anymore. I shouldn't have been at the time, but I was young, and this is 96, 97. And I was working for making chicken wings for Hooters. And I got fired from that job, which is another story entirely, probably. And that's a crazy story. But I got fired from that job. And then shortly after that, the owner approached me and said, "Hey, I'm going to have a big giant tent to sell chicken wings and chicken sandwiches uh, at, at Sturgis, South Dakota, the bike rally in Sturgis, South Dakota. And I need people that I can trust that can come down there and be basically kitchen managers and kind of just be in charge of a just basically shifts every day and make sure that everything runs well." And I did a reasonably decent job. My job performance had nothing to do with the fact that I got fired from that. Long story short, I was I was drinking a beer while still in my uniform, and that was a big no-no because, like, liability issues. Like if you're having a drink and your shift's done, um, and like theoretically, like if you have too much drink or whatever, you could you get drunk and then you're doing dumb things, and then you're still wearing like your Hooters t-shirt and everybody knows you work there. It's a bad look, right? The whole deal was go home, take a shower, put on normal clothes, come back. You can drink. You can come here and have cheap beer and watch TV or whatever. But I didn't do that, and I got fired for that, which doesn't matter. It's whatever. That's the reason. There's a big, longer story to it as well. I was, and I'm not going to get into that. Maybe when I talk about the crazy jobs I've had, I want to do videos about all the crazy jobs I've had in my life. I'll tell that story. But regardless, I went down to Sturgis, South Dakota. I got to go there as one of the pre-crew, meaning that we got there and we got to set up this basically giant circus tent that was, and we got to set up. We built a kitchen pretty much from scratch. Like we built a bar so for people to come and sit at and get their food. We had like picnic tables and stuff like that for everywhere else, and then we um, built like a HVAC system for, like basically fans to like keep the grease and everything and like to basically have air filtration or whatever. And then we set up these grills and we went to town and worked, making burgers, making fries, chicken wings, chicken sandwiches, whatever. And we did that. But this was one of the years, I think it was the first year the WCW had a pay-per-view that was held in Sturgis, South Dakota. And this was like I think it was called Hog Wild is what it was called. And attendance was like free. Like you didn't have to pay to go. And there was just big crowds that you can find you can watch these pay-per-views on like I think it's on the Peacock streaming channel now. There used to be the WWE Network, which I think might exist outside of the US, but now they've just gone to the Peacock Network. But anyway, you can go and watch these old pay-per-views. And so if you go to the one where the Giant, who later became known as the Big Show in WWF, WWE, but he was called the Giant in WCW, had the belt and he was the champion. And this was right after, or shortly thereafter, the heel turn of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, the ultimate, say your prayers, take your vitamins, hero of wrestling. He had turned. He had formed the NWO, and now he was the evil guy. And they conspired and cheated and beat the Giant. And the Giant was huge, right? He's like 7'3" or whatever. And Hogan was this, Hogan's no like small guy either. Like, I mean, he's like 6.5 feet tall or whatever. He was never a small person either, but like compared to the Giant, he was, definitely a smaller person. So he had some help, and he got the championship, and the NWO reigns supreme, evil guys. And this was back when like the evil guys were actually kind of really well liked. Like people would cheer for them. The NWO T-shirt, I have one, is still to this day. You can see it at wrestling venues and whatever. It was quite the evil faction back in the day. I mean, it's kind of like a comparison would be like the Bullet Club, but they're kind of also kind of vanished as well. But I'm sure there's an evil faction somewhere that I don't know about in wrestling that is way more popular than whatever. But anyway, I'm all over the place here. How did I meet Hulk Hogan? So that was kind of towards the end of the Sturgis bike rally. And so we were still open technically, but we were also packing up and getting ready to tear down and move on with our lives. And then, head back home because I lived in North Dakota, in Fargo, North Dakota at the time. So it was kind of a hefty little drive, to get to Sturgis. But regardless, while we were in the process of tearing down and collecting equipment and whatever and putting it away, there was a couple of big semis. We happened My friend Scott happened to look over and he just all of a sudden stopped and he had his eyes wide and he was huge. Now, to be fair, like other wrestlers had absolutely been like wandering around and like coming and getting food. Like, I mean, I remember I met the Steiner brothers. I met Kurt Hennig. I mean, I saw the Giant just walking around, obviously because you can just see a guy that's that huge. I mean, there were several others. I mean, I'm just, and it wasn't like, and I remember I actually talked to Rick Steiner for like, I was serving him beer at the bar and he was telling me stories. He was a really nice guy, funny guy. But regardless, we kind of like were doing our thing or whatever. And then all of a sudden I looked over and my friend Scott, his eyes were just bulging wide and there, large as life, was Hulk Hogan, just like wandering around. Terry Bollea, if you will, was just wandering around in like our like back lot area where we did food prep and stuff like that. And he was just kind of just and I remember at that time the character's name was the Disciple, but Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Leslie, oh I can't remember his last name, real name, who's like well known to be or was at that time like really good personal friends with Hulk. Hogan, they were just wandering around, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I gotta say hi to him. I gotta do something, and it was like so weird and imposing that we didn't know how to like approach and say hi. And I remember my friend Scott actually verbally said, I don't know why we're having such a problem with this. He's just the most famous wrestler in the entire world, and he's like 20 feet away from us, like no bodyguards, no nothing, just wandering around, like just two guys. And this is like I said, this is 1996, 1997, somewhere along there. And I remember I didn't know what to say. And then there was this one guy that we worked with, and I can't remember his name to save my life. But he just like we were like, I don't know, how do you break the ice? How do you approach him? And all of a sudden he just walked right up to him and he was like, "Hey, Hulk Hogan, nice to meet you." And he just shook his hand. And then he was like, "Oh," and then he just walked off. And I was like, all right, so he isn't just gonna like punch you in the face as soon as you approach. So then me and my buddy Scott walked over, and I walked over, and like I said, he was just like a really nice guy. He was like, he probably had this conversation 8 million times, with people that just wanted to like have a brush with greatness kind of thing. And I realized the man has turned out to be kind of a turd of a human, and this is before, and maybe he was always a turd or whatever, but he and I don't agree with a lot of what that person the person that he is. I don't agree with a lot of, and well, I don't agree with anything really. From what I get, I'm sure. If he's probably racist. I don't align with him politically. There's tons. So as a person, I probably if it wasn't the fact that like he was this guy that I watched wrestle when I was a kid and I cheered for, if that was just a person walking on the street and I knew what they were about and what they said about whatever, I would totally be like, yeah, no, I don't want to be friends with that person. I don't want to talk to that person. I don't want to have anything to do with that person. So that's a good disclaimer. But like I said, the guy was just super nice, and I asked him a million questions, like, oh, like what about this? Well, how do you? And he answered them to the best of his ability. I remember I said, hey, thanks for making my Saturday nights with my dad just a joy and so much fun. And he laughed and joked. I remember I asked him, hey, can I get you anything? And he's like, I'd love a beer. And so I remember I went and grabbed him a beer, and I don't remember. I think it was a Miller Lite or something, and I got Brutus the Barber one too, and we kind of joked around with him, and they were both just really, really funny and like just totally relaxed. And it was one of those things where it's like when you just have somebody like you expect. Okay, a couple steps back. When I worked security for concerts, I met a lot of the rock musicians that I always like, oh, I want to meet this person, and almost all of them were like complete and total dinks, and none of them were like cool, if you will. But like Hogan just was cool. He was just totally like, and I remember I was like, hey, congrats on the championship, and he's like, well, I had a little help, and then he was just kind of joking. He was like, hey man, that giant, he's a big boy, and he was talking about and then he talked about like wrestling Andre the Giant. He talked about that stuff. Now I realize that, like in recent years, it's come across as like the guy is just a big giant liar about everything, and maybe he is, and fine. But at that time, like I said, for like 15, 20 minutes of him just, and then it was me and Scott sitting there talking to him. Then a few other people came up, and then and that probably, now that I'm thinking about it, it probably helped a little bit that there was like 8, 9, 10 of us or so that were just kind of having a fun talk session. And because then he felt like he was kind of like, and I'm sure it feels nice when like you're like holding court, if you will, and you have these people just kind of like your adoring fans surrounding you and talking you up. But that's fine. And I do, and the one thing I remember, I was like, "Hey, can I get a picture with you?" And of course, this is before cell phones or anything like that. We had all these like disposable cameras that we were using to take pictures. And I remember and he's like, "Yeah, sure, sure, sure." And like I took pictures of both of them, and like for those of you who are wondering, he was like Mr. Old Brother. He said brother about 100 times in that conversation. Uh, and I remember, hey, can I get a picture of you, having me in a headlock? Well, two things I remember this. Anytime anybody took a picture of him with them, he would take his beer and he would either put it down or he put it behind him. And part of me says, okay, he didn't want to give free publicity to Miller Lite or Coors Light or whatever it was he was drinking. But he said, oh, it's like, hold on, I don't want any of the little Hulkamaniacs like seeing me drinking beer and they're thinking it's cool. And so maybe that's just the line that he said, or maybe he had a kind of a self-awareness where he was just like, I want to be a good role model type of thing. But the other thing is like I said, hey, can I get a picture of you with like you having me in a headlock or something like that? And he's like, oh, I can't do it, brother. And I was like, he's like, my lawyer won't let me do that. It's like all it takes is for you to get that picture, and then you tell me you have your neck hurts, and all of a sudden I'm paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars in a lawsuit. And I was like, I would never do that. He's like, oh, I trust you, brother. I trust you, but my lawyer won't let me do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And to be fair, like if you go back, like you can look into the famous situation where he caused a huge injury to Richard Belzer live on TV by putting him in like a chokehold and stuff like that. So um, yeah, so I get it. I get why he didn't do it, but and somewhere in my mother's basement, there's a picture. There's pictures of me with both Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Hulk Hogan, or the Disciple and Hulk Hogan. And I like the fact that it was evil Hogan, right? I mean, it was like he had the black bandana on. He had the black stubble with the white with the blonde white mustache. So I mean, he was like, and that was kind of like the cool evil Hogan or whatever. Now, so yeah, I met Hulk Hogan. He wouldn't remember me to save his life, but I've had that memory in my mind forever about like just how cool it was to just have that conversation with him. So now, hit the fast forward button while I'm having this conversation. So when he turned evil guy at Bash at the Beach '96, that was huge. But you could see it coming. You could see it was going to happen, because the whole say your prayers, take your vitamins image thing that had grown really, really stale, and it was just a matter of time. Like he needed to like reboot it. He needed to reboot. And say what you will, the guy's kind of a piece of shit. But from what other people have said and what he said as well, remember, you can never really believe anything that Terry Bollea says. Like he has always been a businessman. He's always been about making money, and he knew that he needed to make the change. And between him and Eric Bischoff having the discussion, they made that happen. And he made bank for many, many years. And then and what the whole point of wrestling, when you're a good guy that goes bad, you get to come back as well. And then when you have your redemption arc, you ink even more money. And so with Hogan being a good guy for so long, and then he moved over to being a heel, when he donned the red and yellow once again and became like the true American or whatever, that was like the big moment, right? I mean, and he probably made even more money then. So my son and I were watching wrestling, and we watch wrestling. We aren't like an avid week to week follower. If something interesting happens, we'll tune in and watch it. Like we'll watch it after the fact. But we do watch the pay-per-views, and and it's like, and we're not like super fans anymore, but we enjoy it. And the thing is that there's a local wrestling organization here in town called Below Zero Wrestling, and we go to all of their shows, and mostly because we find it to be a lot of fun, but also that one of my son's Taekwondo instructors is actually a professional wrestler in that group, and so it's one of those things that we really enjoy. But regardless, we're watching we're watching Elimination Chamber, and I'm not going to bore you. You probably already know where I'm going with this. But after 21 years of being a good guy, and everybody kind of agrees 10 years ago this should have happened. But John Cena turned heel. And so taking a step back, I've really enjoyed the acting John Cena. I mean, I think that on a personal level, I think he might be kind of a turd as well. When the really bad stuff came out about Vince McMahon, who is a turd, uh, like he couldn't just say, "Yeah, he's a turd," right? I mean, like he kind of tweened it a little bit, and he lost some, and that makes me go, I don't know if I can. You're like, this is weird, I've always gotten this feeling that it is a really, really good chance that John Cena just might be not a really good human being. But he said he has the world record for the number of like Make-A-Wish Foundation requests that he's fulfilled. So, I mean, I can't even imagine the amount of goodwill that he's done for humanity, for human beings, like going and fulfilling those Make-A-Wish things for kids and stuff like that. I mean, so he gets kind of a pass, but I think just like the rest of us, he's got a flawed whatever, and who knows. But regardless, um, he's not the greatest wrestler in the world. He's not by any stretch of the means. He is a four moves of doom wrestler. He isn't exactly hugely innovative when it comes to wrestling matches, but he knows how to work a crowd, and he's got acting chops, and he knows how to, like I was explaining to Caleb as we are watching. I was like, that guy can just sell. And in wrestling parlance, selling means making the move that somebody does to you, like making it look real. And there's more to it than just like pretending, oh, I'm hurt. It's like, if you are a fan, and if you watch the Elimination Chamber match, you can, I mean, I think you can watch it on, I don't know if it was on Peacock or Netflix or whatever, but you can watch it streaming. You can see like when he's taking punches, like instead of just like going, oh, like taking a punch, he'll like take a punch and he'll go, oh, like he'll shake his head like he can't believe he just got punched that hard and stuff like that. And he goes the extra level when it comes to those things. And so the whole thing is this is his last year of being, he's going to retire after 2025. He's not going to wrestle anymore. Now, wrestlers retire and come back all the time, but he's going to retire, right? And so he's got 16 world championships. He hasn't, and if he gets 17, he'll break Ric Flair's record. Now, Ric Flair has way more than 16 championships, but that's just what they say. That's the canon, if you will. So he's got to get that last one, and he said, "I got to do it." And he said, "I got to main event. I need to main event WrestleMania and go there and win my 17th championship." And WrestleMania, shows up here in April. And so the whole thing is, he was good. He said, "I'm going to go win the Royal Rumble, because if you win the Royal Rumble, you get to pick the person you want to face and go after their championship at WrestleMania." But he didn't win. He got eliminated, and Jey Uso won, and he picked Gunther or whatever, Walter or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. And to face, because he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy champion. But the good guy champion is Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, his son. And Cody Rhodes is just a great wrestler. I mean, he is crisp and clean in the ring. He does a great job. And he is the consummate everyman workaholic, like not Stone Cold Steve Austin, redneck guy, but this guy, wears a suit and, presents himself at his best. But when it's go time, like he wrestles for the people, and he wrestles for himself, and he wrestles for the glory of the good guy. And he is the consummate face. He chased after the championship for years, and he finally got it from Roman Reigns. So here comes John Cena. He gets in the Elimination Chamber match, which is basically a 6-man match. The ring is a little bit bigger. People are in cages around the ring. 2 people start in the ring, then slowly but surely people come out of these cages, and they eventually, it's a last man standing situation, and whoever is the last person, they get to face the person that hasn't been picked for the championship. So the person that won that match is going to go, and they're going to be able to go to WrestleMania, main event WrestleMania, and face Cody Rhodes. And he said, "Well, I gotta do this. I gotta pull this off," kind of thing. And they scripted the match really well. I mean, it was like there was people in there that you just knew had no chance of winning. They put Logan Paul in there, which he is a turd, but the guy can wrestle. So I give him like, I mean, he's got the athletic ability to be an amazing wrestler, but you knew he wasn't going to win. Um, there was Seth Rollins, who I think they finally turned him heel, which is good. He's always been better as a bad guy. I don't know if the crowd's going to let him go bad, but he's finally a bad guy. Um, CM Punk, who I've never been a big fan of, but the guy can wrestle. John Cena, as I said, and I'm trying to remember the other two names, the other two people. I can picture in my brain. Um, uh, the big giant Scottish guy brings a claymore out. I can't remember. And then the guy who's kind of like the young new version of the Undertaker. God, why can't I remember those names? I'm not gonna check them out. Somebody will post them, or who cares? It doesn't matter. So you knew certain people just weren't have no chance to win. Like the Scottish guy, even though I'm a big fan of him, Drew Scottish guy name. I can't. It's just anyway, and like the guy that was the new Undertaker thing. You knew they weren't going to let Logan Paul win. I mean, it was like CM Punk or John Cena were like the two people you could see winning because they're the bigger names, right? So of course it comes down to CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and John Cena left, and John John Cena and CM Punk team up together to take out Seth Rollins, and they get him eliminated. They hit all their finishers on him. They eliminate him. He's gone, and then it comes down to CM Punk and John Cena, and at first, like, then the crowd's just like going crazy. It's going wild. They go forward, and Cena puts out his hand to shake CM Punk's hand, because these guys have been wrestling, been rivals forever, right? They have mutual respect, that whole thing going on. He puts out his hand to shake his hand, and CM Punk just knocks his hand away to give him a hug. Gives him a hug in the middle of the ring before they're gonna beat the tar out of each other. It was like a perfect moment. It almost made me a CM Punk fan, but not yet. Maybe he's got to maybe beat up Seth Rollins or something, because I don't really like Seth Rollins. But they came together, and then they're like, all right, let's go. And then they proceeded to, like, beat the tar out of each other, trying to, like, because the winner gets to go to WrestleMania. It's a huge deal, right? And so tons of false finishes, cover, 1, 2.9, person kicks out at the end kind of thing. They're going back and forth. They're locking in submission moves. They can't get the person to tap out. They can't pin them. And then at some point, like, CM Punk is like dangling between the bottom rope and the middle rope. He had used the ropes to his advantage to, like, break free from John Cena, something like that. And out of nowhere, Seth Rollins shows up, and he has a finishing move called the Stomp. That it used to be nobody kicked out of it recently, and that's one of the things, protecting finishers. Like, there's certain finishers nobody ever kicks out of. This was a thing where, like, his thing, which the Stomp, which was basically like he ran up to somebody that, like, usually, like, just happened to be, like, on all fours, and he would leap up, and then he would land, and he would kick the back of their head and drive their face into the mat, like basically kind of like a curb stomp type of thing. And then it almost always results in him winning the match. And there's been some notable exceptions of people kicking out of it or whatever, but it just normally didn't happen. Anyway, so he gives him a stomp, and, like, the way the elimination chamber match is set up, there's, like, the ring is extended a bit, and so there was kind of like they say it's the steel plates or whatever, and so he drove CM Punk's face into the steel plates around the ring, and like, you realize he's unconscious, he's out, and that's because Seth Rollins just hates CM Punk. And then John Cena has this moment where he doesn't know what he should do, and so then he grabs CM Punk, and he drags him into the middle of the ring, and he doesn't go for the pin. Maybe psychologically he's thinking, oh, like, he could kick out at 2.9, but if I lock in my STFU, which is one of the best names for a submission move ever, which is like just a drop over toe hold, like choke hold type of thing. If I lock that in, even if he kind of comes to, he's locked into my finisher, and there's just no way that he's going to be able to come to. So he locks in the finisher, and CM Punk is trying to like wake up and trying to fight through it. And there's this moment where you can hear John Cena saying, I'm sorry," because he knows like he's taking advantage of this moment where CM Punk was at a disadvantage, right? And but there's no disqualifications. There's kind of like a no rules situation with Elimination Chamber. So he's taking advantage of the moment. Now maybe the good Cena back in the day wouldn't have done that, but this is John Cena's last year, so he's got to do this, right? He's got, and this is foreshadowing, and so he locks it in. There's this great thing where as CM Punk's trying to stay awake, but he's falling unconscious, and then Seth Rollins is like staring at him in the eye, and he's like, "Ha ha ha, die, die," which is great. I hope Seth Rollins just goes evil because he's so much better as an evil guy. And then CM Punk falls unconscious. They ring the bell. The crowd, like as much as the crowd wants to say they're over and they're bored of John Cena, the crowd freaking lost their minds. They're just cheering like nuts. They can't believe he's won it. He's leaping up in the air. Everybody's excited. They raise because the Elimination Chamber is kept in a cage, so you can't escape. They raise the cage. He's like yelling. They unfurl the WrestleMania banner. John Cena's pointed the WrestleMania. I'm going to WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes' music hits. And everybody's like, "Oh," and Cody Rhodes comes out, huge ovation. Everybody's excited to see him. He comes in the ring. Um, they don't give him any microphones or anything like that, but you can kind of see John Cena's like, "You and me, it's what it's supposed to be." It's like, and then Cody Rhodes is like, "It's like I'm honored." He's like, all the gestures to say, I'm, it's like you and me. This is going to be amazing. I can't believe it. I mean, it's like this is gonna be a great match, and they're both like, and they're shaking hands, and they're just smiles all around. And then the Rock's music hit. Now the Rock is an evil guy. I know he's like, if just some Mel, Anyway, so the Rock comes out, and I realize I'm recapping this, but I mean, who cares? You probably know what happened. But the Rock comes out, and he's with some rapper guy. My son said that's Travis Scott. I was like, who? But whatever. They come out. They're both bad guys or whatever. The Rock comes out. The precursing this whole situation, he had told Cody Rhodes that he wants him to like basically come and be on Rock's side, and he's like, I want your soul, Cody. And Cody then says, he's like, I can't give you my soul because I already gave it to this ring, and I already gave it to all these fans that are surrounding us right now. And everybody goes, and then the background, because it's John Cena and he's such a great actor, he's like clapping his hands and he's laughing, he's giving thumbs up, and he's just dancing around. He's super excited, and then got a smile on his face, and you can find the pictures, and it's just perfect. And then Cody Rhodes, he turns him, because now it's on Netflix or whatever, you can swear, and he's like, you know what, Rock, why don't you fuck off? And everybody's like, whoa! And then you just see John Cena even goes more crazy. He's like applauding it, and he's going nuts. And then they all of a sudden they kind of stop, and then you Cody Rhodes and John Cena embrace and hug again, and they do it perfectly in a way that like Cody is looking away from the Rock, and John Cena is looking right at the Rock, and then John Cena's face just turns. He's like smiling, super happy, and then he just goes and like evil and just dead eyes, just completely changes his face. And it's like the entire crowd knows what's what. They're like, no. And you see the Rock, he does the throat slit motion, and then John Cena backs up and like smiles, and then he kicks Cody Rhodes in the balls, and then him and the Rock and that Travis Scott guy, they proceed to just beat the tar out of Cody Rhodes. They leave him bloody in the middle of the ring. Cody Rhodes wears his dead father's Rolex that he has. They take the Rolex off, and John Cena uses the Rolex to punch Cody Rhodes in the face enough times to make him bloody. His blood's pouring down his face. He chokes him with his necktie for a little while, and then they just leave him just destroyed in the middle of the ring. And the crowd just, like at first the crowd's cheering for it, and then all of a sudden they realize it just like everything just goes away, and they don't really know how to react to it anymore. And eventually the bad guys just leave, and they left Cody Rhodes broken and beaten and bloody in the middle of the ring. And I love it. I love the fact that we're gonna have evil John Cena going forward. I don't know how they're gonna do it. I don't know how they're gonna like what John Cena's reasons are gonna be. I'm sure it'll be something along the lines of I need to get the match, or I'm sick of Cody Rhodes, or like he's changed the ring. Just they're gonna come up with some reason why John Cena's doing it, why he teamed up with the Evil Rock or whatever. But it's going to be good. And the thing is that we don't usually wrestling right now. The reason why I'm not so passionate about it as I used to be, it's so obvious right now. It's a very obvious thing. Now, this John Cena heel turn. I mean, earlier in the day before the pay per view, I was actually at a game store with my son, and I ran into a friend of mine and he was talking about it, and he even said, "Do you think Cena goes heel tonight?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like the rumbling, the idea that John Cena went heel at this was out there, right? So everybody's saying, "I can't believe this heel turn." It came out of nowhere. It's not as bad as Hogan back in '96, but it definitely was there. It was like they got to do something. This whole like I'm the good guy chasing the belt thing, it doesn't work. And especially if he's going to face Cody Rhodes, they're both good guys. Face versus face it rarely works. I mean, you can go back to like Hogan and Warrior. I mean, that kind of worked. There were some matches in WCW when Goldberg was the good guy, like when Goldberg and DDP faced each other. I mean, those kind of worked a little bit as well as good guy versus good guy. One person always ends up winning, and then they always shake hands and embrace afterwards, and then the match. But you need an evil guy facing the good guy at WrestleMania. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. And so I think that there was a lot of us believing that this was going to happen. And I remember we talked about it. I was like, I don't know, maybe. I mean, it was like one of those things, but this opens up the door, right? I mean, if this is the way that John Cena gets his final 17th belt, I mean, then he gets to have redemption, right? He gets it in April, and then he spends the rest, and then he's a bad guy for like until what? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he can remain the evil bad guy champion for several months in the WWE before he eventually like drops it back to Cody or somebody else. And I'm just excited to see where it goes. I mean, normally when it comes to like WrestleMania, I'm kind of like, last year's WrestleMania was amazing because that's when Cody Rhodes, he got the belt, whatever, from Roman Reigns finally, and so that was just an amazing moment. So it's a situation now where it's like, do they just? It seems too obvious, right? For John Cena just to beat Cody at WrestleMania, but it also makes me think it could happen. There was like basically this year with WrestleMania, I had no belief whatsoever that the storyline of the WWE was that Cody Rhodes was going to lose the belt, and I just didn't think that could possibly happen. But now I think it's possible. I mean, even like a coin flip possible. So I'm excited to see where the story goes. It's just like any other TV show, movie, or whatever, where you don't know what's going to happen. You're excited to see what happens, and that's why wrestling is kind of like something that I really liked. So, yeah, that's that then. That's the story of how I met Hulk Hogan, and why the good guys going bad is always good for wrestling, which is why John Cena going heel is really good for wrestling. And I realize that like very few people are going to watch this. I really hope that you did, and I really hope that you do. If you are a wrestling fan, post your thoughts about that stuff below. I will listen to whatever crazy theories or what your favorite wrestler is or your favorite heel turn or whatever, all that stuff. I'll respond to all that stuff. And again, these videos are mostly for me right now. I mean, I will do gaming stuff. I promise. I'm trying to get in this habit of making it one video a week. And I promise you I will cover board games and role-playing games more often. But this was something that I was thinking about and I had to share. So thank you. If you watched this video and you watched it to this end, Um, let's see. There'll be a secret word. Let's call it nuthatch is the secret word. So if you watch the whole thing, make sure you put that in your comments, and then I'll know you watched the whole thing. I'll be impressed with you, if that matters at all. Until next time, have a great day. This is me, the Undead Viking.